Okay.
Yeah, I heard it like a long time ago, so I can't remember.
Do you want to know where it really comes from? Back during the Black Plague, who knows where the Black Plague is? Killed millions of people, right? When you started to sneeze or yawn, that was onsites of you getting the Black Plague, and hence people would say, bless you, because you were about to, it was certain death when you started getting symptoms of this. So, well, from the Black Plague. So, but yet everybody says it. Christians, non-Christians, we all are like, bless you, right? People that don't have God, they do have God, they say it, but we don't know where it comes from. Or how about, why do we say, go break a leg? Like somebody's about to go do something, you're about to go, like somebody, I'm coming up here, somebody say, all right, go break a leg, Mike. Where does that come from? Nobody? Who killed Lincoln? That's right. What happened when he fell out of after he assassinated him? He fell out of the balcony, broke his leg on the stage, and that's hence where you get break the legs. Actors will use that phrase, go break a leg. All right, here's another one. This one's crazy. You know, I didn't know a lot of these either. I was just curious because I started looking them up. Saved by the Bell. Where's this one come from? I'm surprised you guys remember that TV show. Zach Moore's phone. No, it's not that actually. No? Okay. So back in the day, it was a common thing for people to have been buried alive. So somebody invented a coffin that had an apparatus that came out with a frame over it with a bell on top and a string that came down. So let's say that you were buried alive. The person that watched over the graveyard at night, he would listen for bells, and often he would hear bells ringing. So it's hence Saved by the Bell. It's pretty cool. You can go online and look at the actual design of this thing. That actually happened. So, or why do we say show your true colors? No one know this one? No? Okay, they say battleships, they would put up multiple colors to disguise their enemy, to trick their enemy, right? But prior to them, but before they could actually blow a cannon off, they had to actually show their true colors. So that's where that saying comes from. But we have all these sayings. We have karma, we have knock on wood. Everybody says knock on wood, right? Don't hit a deer when you're on your way home from church. Oh, you better knock on wood, right? I mean, that one's kind of crazy, actually. It derives from pagan belief that malevolent spirits inhabited wood, and that if you expressed a hope for the future, you should touch or knock on wood to prevent the spirits from hearing or presumably preventing your hopes from coming true. Like, that doesn't sound like anything we should say, right? Pretty crazy. All right, so where do miracles come from? Come on, guys. Jesus, right? Exactly. So why is it that all of us use these sayings, and there's multiple of them, but why is it that when we say miracles, people say Jesus? People that are believers, people that aren't believers, we automatically go to Jesus. Whether we believe that he did them or not, or he didn't do them, we automatically think Jesus. I mean, that's amazing. 2,000 years later, most of these sayings, they all came within the last 200 years or so. But 2,000 years ago, a so-called man conducted all these miracles, and what you guys associate miracle with is Jesus. It blows my mind. So like we said, lately we've been talking about how he has the power over creation, power over Satan. Tonight we're going to talk about how he has the power over illness and the power over life and death, thus proving that it's not folklore and that he is Jesus. Jesus is the power of all. He's the Lord. So we're going to go into Matthew 8. We're going to look at some of these diseases that he cured. Who knows what a leper is? Like what a leper's disease is? Does anybody know what that is? Leprosy was a disease that would attack the skin. It would go after we'd get welts all over yourself, attack the nervous system, very painful. Back in the day, it was incurable. There was no cure for it. The Jews would separate these people away because they were unclean. They would just take them and cast them off to the side. So not only is it bad luck, is it horrible for the fact that you have this horrible disease, instead they cast you off and say, you have to keep a distance from everybody. Would you like to have that? And then they just say, you guys stay over there. So this is leprosy. So this is like a repulsive disorder. I mean, today there are cures for it, medicine that helps to relieve it. We know it's not as contagious as they thought it back in the day to be, but anyways, Jesus didn't care about any of this. He healed all the most repulsive of diseases. When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you could make me clean. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touching him, saying, I will, be clean. And immediately the leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, see that say nothing to anyone, or go show yourself to the priests, and after the gift that Moses has commanded for a proof to them. So immediately Jesus just commanded, and this disease was gone. And he did it in front of crowds. It says a massive great crowds were following him. Next we have the faith of a centurion. Right here he shows us that he can heal from a distance. He doesn't have to be present with the person to heal. You have a centurion came down. Those of you that don't know what a centurion, it was a Roman soldier. It was a leader, usually a century, 100. He had 100 soldiers underneath him. Came forward to him, appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word that my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to you, go. Say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, truly, truly I tell you, there is no one in Israel have I found greater faith. He told the centurion, go, let it be done for you as you have believed. And the centurion was healed at that very moment. So Jesus wasn't even present with the servant. He just commanded it and healed. And all of this was done before people. I mean, we have to keep in mind, if Jesus is going to prove that these miracles are real, I mean, why would he even need to do these miracles? I mean, Jesus tells us that, he taught all of this stuff, and like in Matthew 7:28, and Jesus, that he had finished saying all these things, the crowds were astonished at all of his teachings, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. So how is he going to prove that he has this authority? He has to prove to people that are skeptics. They are probably more skeptic than we are today. This is a primitive time. So he had to do it by conducting miracles, and he had to conduct miracles over every aspect of life. I mean, everything. He had the power over Satan. He had the power over the winds, the waters, changed water to wine. I mean, he can heal incurable diseases. So, I mean, and he had to do this publicly, like an eyewitness report, right? So So we know that he can cure diseases. He heals many, and it says here, if you continue on in 14:8, and when Jesus entered Peter's home, he saw his mother-in-law laying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she rose and began to serve him. That evening they brought him many who were oppressed by demons, and he cast the spirits out with only a word, and he healed all who were sick. That was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. He took our illnesses and bore our disease. Isaiah 53:4, surely he has borne our griefs and sorrows, yet we esteem him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. So here we had a prophecy from Isaiah saying that this was all going to happen, and here it comes forth here in Matthew. So he can heal incurable diseases, but can you raise the dead? So the Bible talks about 3 cases, or the Gospels talk about 3 cases where he raised the dead. He shows 3 accounts of how he can raise the dead, 3 stages. Over somebody that just died, somebody that was on their way to being buried, and somebody that was buried was in the tomb for 4 days. I mean, think about 4 days. Like, in Israel, it's hot there. I mean, imagine how stinky that must have been. So let's look at the first one. This is where he restored a girl to life, and he also healed a blood disorder, 12 years. So while he was saying these things, he said to them, behold, a ruler came in and knelt before him, saying, my daughter just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. And Jesus rose followed him with his disciples. And behold, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. For she said to herself, if I only touch his garment, I will be made well. Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well. And instantly the woman was made well. See, what's interesting about this is 12 years this woman's had this blood disorder, and he healed it, right? Well, the girl that he's about to raise from the dead, she's 12 years old. So 12 years earlier, this woman gets this blood disorder, and 12 years earlier, this girl's born. So 12 years later, he heals this blood disorder. 12 years later, he raises this girl. It tells us that in Luke 5:42, that the girl was 12 years old. It doesn't show us in Matthew's account, but and Jesus came to the ruler's house and saw the flute players in the crowd making a commotion. He said, go away, for the girl is not dead but sleeping. And they laughed at him. That's what people do to Jesus today. They laugh at him, right? Laugh at the miracles. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went and took her by the hand, and the girl arose. And the report of this went through all that district. The next case. We find in Luke 7:11. You guys can remember that verse, right? Okay. This is where you have a widow. The widow just lost her son, okay? And they're on their way to the funeral procession. The funeral procession is on its way, and Jesus is on his way, and they rendezvous to this like pinnacle point, okay? And so let's read it. Soon afterward, he went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a great crowd went with him. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, and the only man of his mother, and she was a widow. And a considerable crowd from the town went with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, do not weep. Then he came up and touched the bier, and the bear stood still, and he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak. And Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, saying, a great prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people. And this report about him spread through the entire and through all of Judea and all the surrounding country. So what we're seeing here is everything's done publicly. He has to do everything in public, and there has to be eyewitnesses. I mean, in a court today, you know it only takes one eyewitness to prove to the jury to find you unanimously innocent or guilty. Only one eyewitness. If the jury finds that eyewitness compelling enough, they can convict you or set you free. Did you guys know that? That's crazy. The Bible's full of eyewitnesses. But the craziest of all is Lazarus. He raises Lazarus from the dead. And the reason I love this story so much is because it's like a big movie. I mean, you have, it sets the stage, it builds up the ante all the way to the conclusion, the climax of it. So, I'm going to dig into it, guys. Bear with me. Now, a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent for him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard this, he said, the illness does not lead to death. It is the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. So he's telling us right here that he's going to use this situation to glorify himself. He's telling us right now that he's going to use this situation so that way he shows to everybody and proves to everybody that he is the Son of God. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in that place where he was. After this, he said to his disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, but he sees the light of the world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. And we'll keep our eyes on Jesus. Jesus is the light, right? After saying these things, he said to them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I will go awake him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover." Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought he meant taking rest and sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus has died." Like he had to plainly tell him, he's dead. "And for your sake, I'm glad that I was not there, so that way you may believe. But let us go to him." So he's telling us again, he's going to use this situation to prove to everyone that he is God. He is the Lord of all. Now Jesus, when he came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Kind of makes you wonder why he stayed back 2 days and waited. Kind of letting it build up more, right? Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him. And Mary remained seated in the house. And Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know whatever you ask of God, God will give you." And Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whosoever believes in me, though he die, shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? Do you all believe this? And she said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who's coming into the world." So when she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here and calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not come into the village, but was still in a place where Martha had met him. So he's kind of sitting off to the outskirts. Everything's going on back at home, right? In Martha and Mary's house. There's all this commotion. People are there consoling them, and he's getting this big rendezvous point. All these crowds. Imagine, put yourself there for a second. All these people gathering together here. Massive crowds. Wherever Jesus went, crowds followed him. They mauled him, looking for people to heal him. They were marveled by him. And then all of this happened. She has all these people. So he's bringing everybody together to go show him this huge miracle. When the Jews were with her in the house, consoling her, Mary rose quickly and go out. They followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now Mary came to Jesus, and she fell at his feet, saying, "Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died." So she said it as well. When Jesus saw her weeping, the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in the spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come see." And Jesus wept. And you guys all know this. I think this is the shortest verse in the Bible, right? So when Jesus said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who have opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying?" So we have a very diverse group of people here. I mean, you have people here that are supporting him. We have people that aren't supporting him. Anyways, the conclusion, the climax. Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb, and it was a cave, and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, "Take the stone away." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there would have been an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took the stone away, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around." So this is all to prove that he is God, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And the man that had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen straps, and his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to him, "Unbind him and let him go." I mean, we're all in bondage to the world before we meet Christ, right? Jesus is the one that sets us free. He's the one that releases the bondage from us. Same thing he did for Lazarus here. He did this in front of everybody. Jesus authenticates himself by doing everything by eyewitness accounts. He did this in front of everybody. I mean, this is the ultimate of miracles. This man raised somebody from the dead that was in a tomb for 4 days. Think about that. You're rotting in a grave for 4 days. I mean, your blood is coagulated. You're rotting. I mean, there's probably maggots. Like, I mean, think about it. It's disgusting. I mean, I don't mean to say it, it's like put it like that, but you kind of sometimes have to visualize, like, put yourself in the moment. I mean, my wife and I, we recently went to Israel. It's hot there. So, I mean, and he just walked in and raised this guy in front of everybody. So, I mean, so everything was done publicly. They were recorded by eyewitnesses. Matthew and John were observers of the miracles. They reported what they saw. And Mark and Luke recorded the eyewitness testimony that was reported to them. I mean, how much more evidence do we need? I think there's 37 miracles in the 4 Gospels. And the Gospel writers say that there's many more that they wrote about. I mean, Matthew 4:23, Jesus was going about in Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness among the people. John 21:25, this one blows my mind. Now there was also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. I mean, these are just a few of the things that he did. I mean, not the world itself can contain the books that he did. I mean, today we have Twitter, we have Facebook, you guys have Instagram. I don't know what all you have to like get things out. I'm not in tune with all of it completely. You guys will have to get me up to date. But, I mean, you say something, it can go viral instantly, right? Like you can send information across the world. Like something goes viral across the internet and it stirs up, it's crazy for maybe like a week or two and then it's gone, right? Well, back in the day, this is a primitive state. I mean, there's nothing horseback, camels, donkeys. I mean, and this stuff just spread across the world like wildfire. And 2,000 years later, here we are still talking about it. We're still questioning it, whether these miracles are real or not. I mean, do you believe these miracles were real? I mean, do you guys? We use all these sayings like knock on wood. Like, I mean, God's knocking on wood. He's knocking on the door waiting for you to open it. I mean, think about it. You can use these sayings to turn it around on people. You can show them that, show them who Jesus is. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for bringing us here tonight. Pray that you show us how powerful you are. Maybe somebody in this room is looking for a miracle. They don't believe that you can still work these miracles. We know that you healed the 10 lepers, and it wasn't instant there. It was a progressive healing. As they went, they were healed. We don't know your plan, but Lord, we just pray that you work your will and your way in our lives and show us your power. We pray that as all of us go to camp, that you just show, work wonderful miracles there. Let people come to you and let us glorify you, Lord. In Jesus' precious name we pray, amen.